Well, with the sealant curing in the school, where I'm sealing the top of that wall, I thought I'd pop over to the metal shop and start working on the rolling racks for the stage pieces. Because all the world's a stage and we are merely players.
Buckle up for safety as I give you a day in the life of online. No, not online. I'm actually there. Facilities maintenance.
While there have been a few modifications, just slight, compared to what I've drawn here, this gives you a basic sense of what it is that I'm building. And I'll show you what I've done in terms of laying it out to start my first weld. The cross pieces that I have clamped over top of the two rails, you can kind of ignore those. The only reason they are there is I've clamped them to take the twist out of the rails. These are the long parts right there that are going to make up this rolling rack. Because if you look at the chair that I've set it on, these old frames, they sit at an angle, and so I don't want the thing to be twisted. I need it to be square and true. So I'm setting up this first one like this, by clamping these in 4 places here. These are clamped together now, so they have to be square, right? This tube can no longer be twisted. And I've also got it trued up as square as can be. I have the width exactly where it needs to be at both ends, and it's the same. And I've just finished squaring it up, and I'll see if I can show you that it is square. Basically, if I pull the square down so that it is parallel, you see the light gap is exactly parallel as well. So there is square. So I can now set it up and start tack welding it into place. I will check again for perfect squareness, and if it is, then I can go ahead and weld it up. Then the other 3 rolling racks that I'm building, I'll just literally use this first one like a template and lay them on top of this. And then everybody will be true and square. Now, like everything else in this shop that I usually have to sort out and clean up before I actually start using it, I'm not using the welding table, but if I were, I'd have to grind it down flat. But what I do have to do is pick all the little pieces of wire and whatnot off these magnets, because I will be using the magnets. And yeah, with all the pieces of wire and metal stuck to it, there isn't a flat side, so I have to clean those up. Oh man. Okay, they're not perfect, but they are clean enough that I can use them. I've got some clean edges that will work for me now. It takes so long to get set up that first time, but that's where it's crucial to spend the time, because once you have that perfect, you make up that time on your second piece, your third piece, and so on. So I'm spending the time now. Well, it can't work like this, obviously. The last time I used it, which wasn't that long ago, I built something, I think it was for probably one of the bathroom stalls. It was functioning fine. So whatever has been done to it was just done recently. Maybe I'll play around with it some more and see if I can figure it out. It might just be a tension adjustment. What's happening is when I pull the trigger, the wire feed isn't consistent. It starts and stops. And I need a steady wire feed if I'm gonna do these. Okay, it's square. So that is good. I've clamped this side exactly where I want to weld that one as well. So if I can tack this up on this side, at least I can get some tack welds in that will give me a place to start. Okay, the last adjustment I did made the difference. So if it keeps performing like that, I have a usable welder. Magnets are good to help you with your initial setup, get things into position, and it's like a third hand. It can hold it there while you do other things. My other things in this case are the clamps. By C-clamping this, I know that these are the exact same height. There's no guesswork involved. Okay, the welder seems to be performing okay now. And with all four corners welded, I can now flip the whole frame over and have a template to use to build the other two frames off of. Thing's not light, but I managed to flip it over. And the only reason I'm using the chairs is so I don't have to bend down so far. I don't have two welding tables of the same height in here to bridge those. And yeah, so this is the easiest way. I just made sure the chairs were sitting on the same piece of concrete. You see how the concrete is poured? There's different break lines. I've noticed in the past that one pad is not quite true with the other. There's slight variance, and for most things it doesn't really matter, but when you want something to be perfectly flat, it does matter. So by situating the chairs on the same section, it gives me a starting place that's truer than if I were to be bridging different sections. And then of course, by clamping those bars over top of here, that helped true things up even more, so there was no twisting action. So I don't think it's too hot to touch anymore. These are perfectly flat now because I haven't welded this side, right? These corners are nice and flat on all four sides. With my first piece down and welded, I can now start using it as a template to build my other rolling racks off of. I've taken the corners and I've dressed them just to make sure that me or somebody else doesn't walk around and accidentally cut themselves in the corner. Yeah, so I'm gonna start doing that now. Another way that you can check for square is to measure diagonally from there and then there. Those measurements, if they're exactly the same, you know you're square. Okay, I've now got it tack welded. This corner, this corner, this corner, and this corner. I know that I am perfectly square, and so now I can just continue to weld it up. And if you're wondering why I don't just weld up one corner completely and then move to the next and then move to the next, it's because heat moves metal, right? Heat causes expansion and contraction, and a lot of heat applied to one corner, if the other corners aren't tacked together yet, will actually force the corner to move, and then it takes me out of square. So it's important to square up your corners at one end, tack them, then square them up at the other end, tack them, and then once you have everything tack welded together, you know it's not going to move, then you can go ahead and weld everything up. I'm just hitting this with a degreaser because I'm ultimately going to paint these, and they come fairly oily. So what you're currently looking at on this top one that I've done is the top side of the rack itself. So now I'm going to flip it upside down. Now if you're wondering why I might do that, that is because the bottom one is sitting upside down. I flipped that one. I'll flip this one so it's upside down. Then I'll build the next one and I'll flip it so it's upside down.
And then they'll all be upside down.
The reason I want them upside down is because then when I'm finished doing this step, now I can weld the wheels right onto the bottom. And as each set of wheels gets welded onto the bottom, then I can flip the thing over, and now it doesn't have to ever move from that position. I can put the handles and the braces on from that position. And once the wheels are on these things, they're going to be much easier to move around than they currently are. Okay, the rack frames, they are welded up. Sans the very bottom, okay? Saving that till last because that will get closed up when I weld the wheels on. So they're all sitting here now, upside down. I can position the wheels and tack them on. This is the front, by the way. So it gets the fixed wheel. The back, where the handles will be, will have the swivel casters on them, so you're able to steer from the back end and point yourself in the direction you wish to go. So yeah, I'm gonna decide on a distance for the wheels. Now one thing that I know is I want them to be close enough together so that they can all four roll onto the back of a lift gate on a, say, a 5-ton truck. I want these rolling racks to be able to take onto a lift, pick it up, and roll it straight into the back of a truck. And if the wheels are too far apart, I won't be able to do that. Okay, I've decided on 16 inches from the end. And that gives me about 5 feet between the wheels. So that will be good. They will be able to roll onto any lift deck. Be very maneuverable at that distance. So I think that'll work out quite well.
Well, it would seem I have had an epiphany.
I am going to use the cart again as a template to lay out the exact width of each of my handles and weld those up prior to welding them on and welding the wheels on. You'll see what I mean. So let us unwrap our presents. And yeah, I'm gonna clean these up a little bit, just clean the oil off them and dress the ends a little bit like I did with the longer pieces. And then I will start placing them. Okay, if my explanation didn't make sense, this should be a little more clear now. This is the handle, just sitting there like that. The magnets are holding it even with the end of the rack. And so now I can tack it together, and when I go to weld this handle onto this rack, the spacing of the bottom will be exact, and I won't have to play around with anything. It'll just fit where it needs to go, and I can weld it together, and everybody will be happy. Make sense now? There is my first handle. The spacing is perfect. And I knocked on a chair. Spacing is perfect. It's all welded up. And now, after I've put the wheels on this base and then flipped it over, I can weld the handle into position. When it comes to welding these wheels on, these fixed axle ones, these ones that do not swivel, I can just give her welding them on. I don't have to worry about any heat transfer into the bearing, just because the only bearing is way up here. With these other ones, it's a little different story though. I have to be a little more careful as I weld these ones, simply because I don't want to put too much heat into this bearing set here. There's two bearing sets actually. And it's a good thing that they actually have grease nipples, so they can be greased. But I'm going to have to probably tack weld it and maybe a little spritz of water to cool it, tack weld it, cool it, and attach these ones in that manner. Just like I say, to protect the bearings. Pretty confident that I didn't cook these bearings. I started with a single tack weld in the middle of each one, and then went to the other one. I alternated back and forth between the two of them. Started with the single tack weld, and then I did two on the outside, and then went back over to the other side. Then when I came back, I did two more in the infill, so they've got 5 altogether on each side. That's plenty strong. And by the time I got back, there's so much metal mass here that the heat that was there was completely absorbed into the rest of the framework. And yeah, path of least resistance. I'm pretty sure that the heat went into the frame faster than it went into the bearing. So my wheels are welded in place. My handle is ready to be put on. But before I can do that, now I will just finish off the underside welds. There, and then out there and out there. Then I can flip the whole thing over. Well, in order to weld that handle into position, I need something that is going to hold the weight of that handle up off the ground, because while the magnets can hold it from falling over, they cannot hold the full weight of that handle where it needs to sit. I found this gnarly old block that just happens to be 14.5 inches long. I'm cutting it in half, and that is what I will use. There, that works. Welding bent right over at foot level vertically is more challenging than being able to weld flat at waist height. So I'm gonna go for comfort, which is why I've flipped this thing on its side now. Now that it's tack welded into place, I can move it around however I like. Flip it on its side and weld everything up while it's... I don't like bending over, let's just be honest. See how much cleaner that is? Well, one of the rolling racks has now taken shape. That's it there. A couple little details I still need to do with it, but that's essentially what it is. It's going to look like. I've started putting the wheels on the second one, but yeah, my welder's acting up, and I need to work on it a little bit, and that's not going to happen today. So I'm packing it in for the day, and I will see you tomorrow, which for you will just feel like a few seconds. Back in the shop working on these rolling stage carts, and the welder is acting up on me. I'm not happy with the weld. Last week the weld was flowing nicely. These are my welds from last week, okay? So I'm getting very good penetration. you know, these welds are strong. And the welder was acting up, so I replaced the tips. It had bird nested and the tips were old and burnt, and so I put new tips on and whatnot. But the welds, it's like I'm not getting gas. See looks like a lava field? According to the gauges, I still have gas. So unless this is wrong and bottoming out at 8,000, and I am running out of gas, the way the welds look to me, they look like the gas isn't turned on. And so that could very well be the issue. And if it is, this project is dead in the water until September, because the shop teacher told me a few weeks ago that he wasn't going to replace the gas bottles until next year, September, after summer. Which is unfortunate because we have work to do during the summer. Okay, I wasn't having any luck with the little Miller, the blue one, so I put old Big Red and Ugly to work, and well, you tell me what you think. Two rolling racks done-ish, and just putting together the handle on the last one. I'm not going to paint the whole thing, just the exposed areas. Keep it a little cleaner too, as people use them. Fighting a bit of a breeze out here.
Autobots, roll out! We roll. And thanks for watching.